Hello, everyone. This is our third episode of Wake Up with Tammeron, and I am your host, and I am a top Canadian astrologer traveling around Canada and meeting amazing and powerful people. And today I am interviewing a powerful woman who has tapped into the energy of the Age of Aquarius. And she has also experienced a shift in her own life that she has observed. So I want to introduce you to Maggie Olson. She is the founding of her business called Chaos to Clarity Coaching. So thank you, Maggie, for willing to be a guest here on my third episode today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This could not be coming at a better time.
Absolutely, right? So it's so interesting how no matter what age of people that I'm talking to, especially women who seem to be a little bit more intuitive and a little bit more interested in a lot of this woo energy and the way we're using these unseen forces in our business model. So I am so excited about what we're going to be talking about today, because in a lot of these interviews, I really want to educate people about three core principles of what the Age of Aquarius represents. And so the first thing is about having compassion and equality, and also the energy of collaboration. And so this is what I would love for you to share with some of our listeners today about some of these experiences that you've also been experiencing. And can you tell everybody watching today or even listening how we actually met a while ago?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like it was, divine intervention, right? We met in a coaching group and I feel like we really just kind of like clicked. Like I instantly knew like there was a reason that like I needed to talk to you. Like, and it was such an interesting pull for me because I was like, oh wow, like, oh, Tammeron, like definitely good vibes, like great vibes, but also I'm like, there's something she has to tell me. And it was one of those like curiosity things where I'm like, well, I have to find out. I have to find out.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, because you did attend one of my first master classes that I had created, that I wanted to start teaching entrepreneurs how to use specific energy, and also how to understand even some of the basic numerology, and how the numbers actually represented cycles of spiritual lessons that people could experience. And how do we use that wisdom once we've gained the knowledge, and then not only apply it and reflect on our personal life, but how was that showing up in our business models?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, totally. And I know like when I took that master class, it was so eye-opening for me to see and learn some of that information. And in this whole journey, I would say over the last couple of years, right, astrology and human design have played a huge role in my business growth, but also in my personal life, right? Like just understanding, like knowing that there is something else out there for like the reason why I'm doing these same things and kind of like hitting my head against a wall, right? Like having these same patterns show up and then realizing like, oh, I have like the universe is showing me a pattern that I now get to break, right? A cycle that gets to come to an end. And, I think that is really powerful. That's one of the most powerful things that really astrology and human design have both really taught me over the
Yeah.
last few years.
Yeah, I agree. And I haven't studied a lot of human design. I have studied more of the astrology, and recognizing how more people are paying attention to astrology. And that really is another indication of the age of Aquarius, where even a lot of astrologers were saying astrology is going to become very mainstream,
Mhm.
in this specific year, especially. And so, for our listeners, can you just briefly explain what is human design?
Yeah, totally. I feel like human design is, at least for me, it's kind of like a manual for life. And it really kind of fits in with astrology in such a cool way. It's really a combination of a bunch of different I guess modalities, for lack of better words, right? And it really kind of dives into more just like astrology of your birth time, birth location, right? Like birth date, and gives you this like almost manual to you where you get to now like read through some of this stuff. And what I love about human design, and particularly what I've focused a lot in my business about, is the foundations of human design, right? So for anyone who's listening, you may have heard people talk about, oh, I'm a manifestor, I'm a generator, I'm a manifesting generator, projector, reflector, right? You may have heard some of those terms and wondered, what are you talking about, right? And kind of, similar to when like Enneagram was big, people would be like, oh, I'm an Enneagram 5, or, this, that, and the other thing. But what I love about both astrology and human design is it's based on your birth, right? The time when you were when you came into this world. Um, and for me, that feels more like definite, right? Like with all of the other tests, Myers-Briggs, so on and so forth, they're great, but like my answers would differ day to day. Like I could take those tests one day and get one answer, and a different day get a different answer. Whereas with like astrology, like this is it, right? And I feel like astrology goes so much more in depth, and human design, right? So you have your design, your personality, there's astrology, right? Symbols associated with that. And then you also have all of this wonderful information about like, for me, it wound up being like the not self and the signature themes are what really clicked for me. So for me, I'm a manifesting generator. My not self theme is frustration. So like there would be things that I was doing and I would be like, I'm just so frustrated with this. And pretty soon I realized, oh, okay, I'm experiencing this frustration, like, and then my signature theme as a manifesting generator is satisfaction. So I started looking at like, okay, if I'm feeling frustration around social media, how can I shift that so that I feel satisfaction, right? What am I doing right now that's causing me frustration, that's causing me all these headaches, that isn't working, right? Quote unquote, or just isn't, it's not producing the results that I want it to. It's working. It's just not doing what I wanted. So how can I shift that? So I started applying that in my business. And at the same time, I also started reading a lot about human design in kids. I have two little kids, and I wanted to stop fighting with my 6-year-old. And I know that probably sounds dramatic, but like when I learned more about her human design, like I was able to shift how I was approaching her, right? She's a projector. I'm a manifesting generator. I have a ton of energy, huge amounts of energy, and she does not, right? So like my big energy, no matter how excited it was exhausting her. So like I've learned now how to like navigate my own energy and like not just like throw my energy everywhere, right? I've kind of learned how to contain it a little bit so that it's like, oh, okay, I kind of sense like your vibe, right? Like kind of like meeting your vibe and being like, okay, like this person does not need as much energy as like I want to just give everyone.
And I can totally relate. Like, you talk about your daughter, and I am a projector. And like I say, I don't know a lot about your genius zone, about human design, but when I scanned through the information that came up when I plugged in all my birth data, and it spit it out, that sheet of information like an astrology birth chart would, I saw some things on there that were very interesting. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I want to ask you two questions about this is, first off, what I recognize is, like, having the energy. because a projector, I realized that for myself that I had a lot of nervous energy. And
Mm-hmm.
that I did notice in my astrology chart too. When I started studying that and studying other people's birth charts and information, and I realized that because of that energy, I picked up on other people's energy. And so over the years that I've been doing a lot of this self-help work and holistic wellness as well, I had to learn how to shield myself so that I understood what was my energy and what was not my energy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's one powerful thing. But I want to go back and just ask you if you could just briefly touch on when you talked about how it represented the energy of satisfaction, because I know you used to be a yoga teacher, and this is what I'm going to ask you in a few more questions too, is the shift you went through during the last few years in your business. But did you did you shift the energy of what you were feeling to step into the energy of satisfaction? And then did you notice the shift happen after that? Because that's the emotional body that many of us talk about, even in our coaching programs or working with clients. It's not always what we see on the outside, the mental or thinking what we need to do. It's more about how we feel about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that what can you explain to people? Is that what you shifted? Is what you were feeling?
Yes. And I also shifted what I was doing, right? So I really kind of took a look at like, what am I doing? And this is like specific to social media. There were other aspects that I did a similar thing, but I did it with social media first because I was at this point where I was like, I don't want to be on social media. I don't like this. It's not working, right? All of these you could probably call them excuses, but like all of these feelings were starting to bubble up and frustration was at the top, right? I felt like anytime I post anything, nobody is engaging with it. So why am I doing it? Like what? And I know a lot of other people have these same feelings.
Me too.
So,
I can
right?
relate to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And or they're like, oh, Facebook is broken. I'm going over to blah, blah, blah. Right. And like hopping from place to place, but never really getting anything done. And something one of my mentors had said was just give one platform 6 months. Spend 6 months on a platform talking to people, right? Like, and also selling, but like get really good at one thing first. And for a long time, that made me feel so boxed in, right? It's like niching down, where so many people are like, I can't niche, I feel boxed in, which, I saw that as an opportunity for me to say, okay, if I'm feeling boxed in, what if I'm standing on top of the box? And that is like providing the ladder to the top of the next box, right? So instead of being inside the box, like I'm starting at one place, and that's helping me climb to the next place. So my niche will expand. And I kind of applied that to social media. So, okay, I said, all right, I'm going to choose Facebook because there's tons of groups, there's millions of people on any platform. But I was like, I'm already kind of established on Facebook. I'm going to focus on posting regularly on my profile and in a couple of groups. And this didn't mean like posting in 500 groups. I think I
Right.
posted in a maximum of 5,
Yes.
right? So it was like planning where I was going to post and then showing up in those groups and on my profile to like basically talk to the people, right?
Yeah.
And have conversations. And that's a lot of what is involved in my business is helping people learn how to have a conversation and not feel like they have to be everywhere doing everything, showing up, oh, I have to show up at 8:01 a.m. and 2:33 p.m. because that's what this guru said, and I have to post 12 times on Sunday because whatever. No, like I took that frustration, right? That is what was frustrating me, was like all the gurus were saying you have to do this and this and this. And I'm like, but what if I don't want to? What if I don't want to do it like that? What if I do it my own way? That feels good for me to show up, right? So I knew that I could commit to posting once a day, 5 days a week in up to 5 groups. And then I would go back into those groups a couple of times throughout the day and spend 5 minutes engaging on my post and engaging on other people's posts. So liking, commenting, offering my own value. And that is where the shift started to happen. And I started to feel satisfied with that. And it was easy to show up then. It wasn't this like, oh my gosh, I have to post, I have to, like that pulling out the hair of like, I can't, how is it worth it to keep doing this? It shifted into this, oh, I have to make, like, let's go and create 2 weeks of content. It doesn't have to be anything like earth shattering, but like, can I use Chat GPT to help me generate some prompts for me to answer questions? What are people engaging with? Do they like the questions that I'm asking, right? Things like that. So it became much easier to have these conversations like in Facebook groups. And I will say admins of Facebook groups absolutely love it when you help the group have a conversation,
Yeah.
right? And so I got a lot of feedback from admins of groups saying, I see you everywhere. How are you doing this? Like your engagement is off the roof. Like, thank you for engaging my group, but like, how are you doing this? And it really was super simple. I literally took a step back and said, well, what do I want to commit to? And how long am I willing to commit to this? Right. And I made myself do it for a month, right? 5 days a week for a month. And by the end of that month, I was like, oh, I like this. And for me, for manifesting generator, that made me feel really good. It gave me that satisfied energy. And it was very easy to continue that.
Yeah. And that's great advice for a lot of people, because what I was going to ask you was, what advice can you give people? And I think, as you know, we tie that up is to, that's where studying, whether it's your astrological birth chart, or even your human design, working with an expert, someone like you, is going to help people to understand how to use their energy specifically to what feels good for them. Like, I can
Mhm.
relate to what you're saying, and I don't know a lot about human design, but what I've noticed is that, because I'm a projector, is that I just love to educate. Like, I love to talk to people, I love to ask questions, but also it's very one-on-one.
Mhm.
Like, I'm very focused when I talk to people, and my energy is on everything that they're saying, and I'm listening. And a lot of people have said to me is, how did you hear that? It's because I can hear what they didn't say.
Mhm.
That just comes through a lot of personal meditation over many years myself,
Right.
because I have to tap into my energy first before I talk to someone else, and to put that energy out so that I am protecting my energy, not negatively, but it's so that I can hear your energy or feel your energy. I can hear what you're saying, and then I can stay focused on myself. So I don't know if that's, anything that shows up in a projector's chart, but again, it's just about putting myself out there and not pushing for the sale. Because what it showed me is just to, like, be myself, and it comes back. Like, the invitation comes back. And
Oh,
it's
totally.
hard to do when you think you're supposed to be selling in business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Because like what almost everyone thinks of business is I have to sell, sell, sell. And a lot of what like I feel like the world has shifted into is more intuitive selling, right? You see more affiliates, you see more
Yes.
people doing user generated content where, like my husband, the company he works for sells bidets. And I had said to him, I'm like, why don't you have, he was complaining about bidet sales. And I said, why don't you have more like affiliates and like user generated content? And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I found this person on TikTok who literally installed your company's bidet, did this like 3 minute video on it, and like probably got you guys some sales. And he was like, you can do that? And he said, that's what a lot of sales are. And that's what like I talk sometimes about like bro marketing, and like it can work for some people. The sending 100 messages a day, hoping at least 10 people, message you back, and then selling to one person. That's great, but that's also exhausting. Even for me as a manifesting generator with a ton of energy, that's
Yeah.
exhausting. So like I
Yeah.
wanted a different way, a more feminine way, right? That
Yeah.
way typically works for men better than for women. But I also believe that just the astrological shifts that we've gone through, having that shift to be like, oh, I don't have to just like power sell. Like I can be myself. I can let, like I can kind of like let my, I don't, well, I guess let my freak flag fly, right? Like bring out those things that are
Yourself.
in me. Yeah, be
Yes.
myself. And like people are either gonna love it or they're not. And that's great, right? The people that love it are probably my ideal clients anyway. So
Yeah.
it then becomes more like intuitive sales.
Yes.
And
It's authentic.
yeah.
And that's part of what this Age of Aquarius does represent. Because we're talking about equality, it also shares the authenticity of somebody.
Hmm.
And like you were talking about, is collaboration. We're seeing more efforts of collaboration, that equality and compassion, where it's non-judgmental. It's just, it is what it is.
Right.
Because if we're forcing something to happen that's not in our own energy, it's misaligned.
Yeah.
It's not in alignment. And so that's where we feel that energy. So we're just about to close off. I love everything that you've shared. I hope our listeners are paying attention and getting more information about what human design actually represents. So I'm going to ask you a little question to close off here is, what was something that you were curious about doing or having in an astrology consultation, or were you curious about what it was? And then what was your takeaway? Like,
So I think I've always been like really drawn to numbers, right? Like and like what numbers mean, numbers that show up and like all of that stuff. So the when we connected and the consultation that you did for me, like the numerology stuff was just so eye-opening to be like, I see that pattern happening and I see that happening, and like just gave me such insight into like, oh, here's this repeating pattern that's been going on that I would kind of like to change, or this pattern that's like, oh, I kind of like this, right? That keeps happening. So, just understanding that gave me like this sense of knowing and this sense of peace that, like, oh, wow, this is like so cool and like is like designed for me, right? Like my life is totally just like playing out the exact way it's meant to.
yeah, exactly. And that's where we have to, it gives us a sense of validation and acceptance. And again, the uniqueness where we are all authentic, because you can't change where the planets were the minute you took your first breath, whether that's to get an astrology consultation or whether it's to cast a human design chart.
Hmm.
Like it's just extremely validating when you see that on here. So yeah, and also I just want to ask as well, have you noticed more of this shift with people you've talked to, people in business, whether it's online, in the last couple of years? Have you noticed the big shift where more people are being interested and wanting to know more about the topics of human design or astrology? Have you seen
Oh,
an increase?
absolutely. Yeah, I've seen a big increase. Anytime I post on social media about human design, people are like flock to the post, which is so cool. I love that. And I love that, I'm able to offer information about it, right? Like I love that I have friends in astrology who, like people who come to me if they're curious about that I can, refer them to. And that's something else I love about this time period. Like the collaborations that I've seen are so cool. And so many more people are open to collaborating in so many different ways that like I feel like I know I was born in this time to be like part of this big collaboration. And that feels really cool.
Yeah, I can totally relate. And to me, that's really the concept of what the show is about, is because I think more people are waking up And that's why I
Mhm.
theme this show, Wake Up With Tammeron, into this unseen world, which is represented by the Age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
And it's happening and it's there. And it really is a wonderful time to be on the planet amidst the chaos that's happening. Because sometimes when we're going through big shifts, it just means good things are coming, like changes are coming.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Maggie. I love a lot of the information, your stories that you've shared here with me and for everyone listening today. And I just want to encourage everyone to remember to come back for my next episode of Wake Up with Tammeron. Thanks, Maggie, and
Thank
cheers,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.